I'm on another level, keep up. On another level.
Awesome. Well, looks like we are live again. We're back with another podcast of entrepreneurial women, the next generation. Super happy to be back. We finally did it, Elizabeth. Another one done, or well, not yet.
Well, in the process, right?
In the process, exactly.
Speaking of processes.
Oh, speaking of processes, today we're going to be talking about the done sales process. Love it or hate it. If you're a business owner, it's something you cannot avoid by any means, something that is super important, something that I speak to my clients about almost daily. So I wanted to go ahead and bring this topic up to Elizabeth, and she said, sure. Right? You were like, yes, another one. Great, Irina, good one. So Elizabeth, for those who don't know, what is a sales process?
Okay. So I found a definition to the sales process, and this is from saleshacker.com. So according to saleshacker.com, a sales process is a template for achieving sales objectives and replicating a desired level of performance by sales reps. It lays out a repeatable cycle of steps a salesperson takes to turn an early stage lead into a new customer. So,
and in English.
So basically what I got from that definition is a sales process is just the steps that one would take in order to turn a lead into a sale. So whatever that means to you, whatever industry you're in, how do you get someone who's interested to an actual customer where a transaction is closed? Does that sound like a good definition, like layman's terms?
Yeah, I think so. And the way that I look at it is I call it the customer journey sometimes because, because this way it just makes me feel a little better and less salesy. I'm like, okay, I don't really, because sometimes you think of sales and there's a lot of things that you don't really like with it. So I like to think of it as a customer journey. Right? So you want to, even before someone becomes a customer, right, there's that process that happens before they pull out their credit card or pull out their checkbook and sign something. So there are these steps, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So really, we wanted to talk about our own experiences because that is what this podcast is about. We want to be raw, real, authentic. We want to let you know that, we went through the same processes of trying to learn and trying to figure things out. And through that process is how we learn, right? So did you want me to start or did you want to share this?
Let me ask you the first question because, and I totally like what you said, like, you think of salesperson and you just like kind of cringe, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, like, what do you do? Sales, it's like, oh, so you push people around. I see. Okay. So the first question is, Irina, how were you trained to sell and what was your first sales experience?
Okay. This is actually really funny. So I came from a background where I did not do any sales. Now I know that I have always done sales in my life. Everybody's always selling something, right? But like the business world, right? I did not actually do any sales. So I came from, a corporate job, sitting behind a desk, doing tasks. That's what I had always done. And before that, I was in school and that was just, doing what I was supposed to do for the different assignments in school. So when I started my business, I really did not know anything about sales. So my first experience, I'll tell you like two stories. Like one was I had started in the marketplace selling websites for lawyers. So I was doing it old school. So I went and, I knew I had to get myself in front of somebody who would buy. So I got myself in front of some lawyers and, I did it old school because I'm saying I actually went to their office and sat down and had the conversation and everything like that. And then what I noticed was they were like, this is great. Yeah, we really want to move forward. We definitely want to do this. Just follow up with us. And I was like, okay, that's great. So then I didn't know what to do. So I just kept following up and saying like, can we schedule another meeting, right? Because I thought, okay, it's got to be a series of steps. That's what everybody keeps saying. So I was like, okay, I just have to keep getting in front of them until they finally just give me the checkbook, right? Like that's how I thought it happened. So I was like, I think this was like I left the third meeting with no check. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing something right. Like, because I'm having meetings with them. They're saying, great. They can't wait to get started. We have like, even when we put a date that we're going to get started, it just gets missed. I'm like, okay. So after that third meeting, I got really just like frustrated. It's been so many months at this point, and I had gotten some other clients, but this was like the big one that I was going for. And I finally just wrote a text message to the main guy, and I said, hey, listen, the offer that I presented to you is expiring this week. So I put a deadline on the offer, and I gave him a great offer, obviously, because it was like one of my first projects. And he said, like, literally within 30 minutes, I got a text message, send an invoice to whoever it was that pays the invoices. And I got paid like right after that. So I realized that when it comes to certain types of steps, there's certain things. And one is there's got to be some kind of rules that you have to have, because if you don't have any rules, then you'll just keep having great conversations and you'll just keep getting put off to the next and the next and the next. So that was something really interesting. That was an in-person. And then when I finally decided to do over the phone and started closing deals over the phone, I didn't know what I was doing. It was also for another website. And I remember that I was just sweating profusely because I was basically going against my fear and just not really knowing what I was doing. But I'm not even like the kind of girl that sweats a lot when I go to the gym. I'm not like that. So for me, I've been literally sweating bullets. Like, I was so nervous, so scared, just did not know what I was doing, like at all. And then finally, I just did the same thing at the end. I was like, okay, I repeated everything. After this was, I think, the second call or maybe the third call, I repeated everything. So we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I'm going to send you everything in writing, and the offer will expire by the end of the week. And next thing you know, they were like, yep, the deal is closed. I just can't believe just how nerve-wracking that first experience was. I mean, it just was all of those beginning experiences, especially because I wasn't trained.
Yes.
I was learning on the job. I had all of this pressure, so I was just so overwhelmed. And now I guess I've gotten a little bit more of a rhythm. We'll talk about that. But what about you, Elizabeth? What was your first sales experience like, or learning a sales process?
So my first sales process was when I worked at a makeup counter in a department store in Phoenix, Arizona. And I believe I started there when I was 17, and then I worked there through 19. But, it was very quota focused, and it was very high pressure. And, I'm someone who I try to live by the golden rule. I don't want to do something to someone that I wouldn't appreciate done to myself. And I do not like to be pressured. Like when I'm going to buy, I'm going to buy, and I'm going to like destroy my credit card. But until I am, like, leave me alone.
Yeah. You have to make a decision. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, and I'm also someone who's, I've been so poor, I've barely been able to support myself, and maybe going to the mall was like I was just walking around for something to do, just to get me out of my apartment, So the person who trained me, she said something to me that really just kind of sat wrong. And it was like, well, they wouldn't be shopping if they don't have money. So, it was very pushy, very, you see someone approach the makeup counter and you're just like on them, like white on rice. And, do you have any questions? And it's like, okay, and so I would get in trouble because I'd say, hey, my name's Elizabeth. I'll be right over here. If you have any questions, just let me know. And I would get, this lady who trained me, she's like, no, you got to stay on top of her. You got to like make them sit down. You got to put blush on them. You got to do all this. And it's like, she sold a lot, but also when she wasn't there, I was the one who was like taking her returns. So yeah, she could sell a lot at once, but it also like came back. So that was my first sales experience, is to be super pushy, not necessarily listening to the customer's needs. It was more about meeting a quota. And while I do understand meeting a quota, this is how we support ourselves, this is how we eat. I would rather have someone, want to come back to the store and say, you know what, you took such good care of me last time. This time I need mascara and eyeshadow. Can you help me again? So I'm more, I decided at that moment, I'm more someone who would prefer to have someone repeatedly come back to me than to just get you good, one time. And then like next time you see me, you're like, I don't even want to go to that mall because Elizabeth's going to be at that counter. Like, I'm going to go to the different mall where they don't like shove their, makeup down my throat. So that was really my first sales experience. And I didn't like it. I don't like feeling like I'm pushing someone towards something that's not in their best interest. So that was my first sales experience. So yeah, but retail is a whole different animal, right?
Oh yes, that's what I was gonna say. So I've never even experienced like B2C sales. Like I don't even know what that's like. I'm only in the B2B world, but
Yeah.
I'm getting a sense of it now that there are some similarities, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I think this would be a perfect segue into our next question, like the difference between, B2B and B2C, because you've been in both, Elizabeth. What's your kind of take on the differences of those?
Well, I would say the main difference would be that B2C, and just so we're clarifying this, B2C is business to consumer sales, and B2B is business to business. So just in case anyone wasn't familiar with the acronym. But anyway, so when it's a consumer, I feel that it's something they may want or need. I feel like when it's business to business, there's a need there. So like Irina, you sell marketing services. I sell commercial loans. So I mean, businesses need marketing, and some businesses don't have the cash to finance equipment or have capital for their business. So that I think business to business is more based on a need. Of course, there's sometimes wants. It's like a business wants the latest and greatest, they might not necessarily need. But I feel like a consumer is like, like I want makeup, or I want, whatever it is. So that's one difference I've noticed. I'm sure there's others. There's differences and similarities, but that's one thing I've noticed. I don't know. How about you? Do you have anything to add on to that, Irina?
I mean, I think you nailed it. Everything you said. The only thing, like I said, I have that experience in business to business, and I realized that it's very crucial to even be maybe even less pushy when it comes to business because, the ticket items are going to be bigger. So you really have to have even more, I think, of a relationship. But I think the way that I look at sales, regardless of what it is, yesterday, I went out with my mom and my sister to a restaurant, and we had a wonderful waitress, and I started out on waitressing. So actually, in a way, I was selling them too. I was upselling, right? Because I knew the more that I upsell, the bigger the
money.
be, the bigger my tips were going to be. So there was some of that too. But it was relationship. So as soon as we sat down, she was like, "Hey girls, it's Monday, so calories don't count." And we were like,
Nice.
And she made us feel so welcome and so good, right? So she right from the start, she started building that relationship. And so in a way, while there is that difference between like, a business selling to a consumer or a business selling to a business, in the end, do you feel like it's now transitioning more to like what I've heard as P2P, which is person to person? Because at the end of the day, it's just like, whether it's CEOs selling to each other or, someone in there. But at the end of the day, it's like relationships. Like, you know that you can go to any realtor, right? But you're going to go to the one that you feel has your best interest. You know that you can go to any commercial loan officer, but you're going to go to the one that you feel is going to really take care of you. And the same thing with marketing. I'm like, when I entered the marketing space, everyone kept telling me, "Oh my goodness, like another digital marketing company," and I'm just like, yeah, but you know what? I know that I've got something special, and I'm going to make sure to prove it. And that's kind of what I did. And I like to even ask my customers, like, what is it that, you think you really like about working with me? And because I'm always trying to figure out what is it. And a lot of them always tell me, "Irina, you feel accessible. I feel that you have my best interest. You always let me know when something's new or something's up. So you keep me in the loop. And that's why I enjoy working with you, because you're results driven and you're always looking out for my well-being. And I'm like, yeah, So I think that's probably the main things about it, is just that relationship building, being able to really connect with other people, and being able to connect without a sense of being like pushy. Because like you mentioned, that woman at the makeup counter, right? She wasn't there when you were doing the returns. And that's what I noticed, because I was desperate when I first started my business. There was a couple of deals that I did really push and grind and, try to make them think that they just need to get this when, they were maybe not ready, or they were a startup or whatever. And what I noticed is that those people, like, they always ended up like not staying for long. So that's when I realized that, at the end of the day, it has to be a fit on both sides. What you're providing has to really be, something that they need or they want. And then on the other side, you have to really take into account the person or the business buying, that they're really in a good place for it, and that they're a good fit. That's why we always talk about like being a good fit, or when I jump on a call, I'm like, to explore synergies, right? Because if it's not a good fit right now, maybe it'll be a good fit later. So there's no need to force a sale, basically.
Absolutely, which kind of, is a good segue into the next question. So, and you may have answered some of this already, but now that you have some sales experience under your belt, do you like to approach sales with force or flow? And can you give some examples?
Yeah, that is a perfect segue. So like I mentioned, I used to use a lot of force. And because when I learned about the deadline, right, that first sale that I got, that big check that I got, was because I put a deadline on it. So I was like, oh my God. So I went into like objection handling research. I took a bunch of courses and classes, and I just inundated myself with like sales training, because I was like, okay, clearly there's something I don't know. There's skills that I don't understand. And it took me like 3 to 6 months or whatever to close this deal. I don't want 3 to 6 months to close another deal. Like, I'm literally not going to make it in my business, right? Like, I'm not going to make it if I'm taking this long to close deals. So I was like, okay, so I went into it and I learned about objection handling, and I learned about all these tips and tricks, and I started using them. And basically I went into high pressured sales. And you know what? I did get the sales, like I said. Even if they weren't a good fit, I ended up onboarding clients that were really not someone I truly wanted to work with.
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening is that they wouldn't even stay. And then it backfired on me, because that's not the personality that I am, right? Like, I was just doing it out of sheer desperation, I guess, because I was worried about like, how am I going to make it in business? So in the end, now if I try to be basically less about the outcome and more about the process.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, exactly.
The customer journey, which I love that too.
I just follow the steps, right? Like, I know what's worked. I've outlined it. So I just keep following the steps. And if somebody drops off, it's like, no big deal. Like, they just weren't ready. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't follow up and just check up on them, but definitely, like, as much as I try not to use force. Every now and then that forceful personality likes to come out, especially like, I don't know. It's like, it just depends. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just gotta like, kind of like remember that it's okay. It's not my last piece of bread. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the last person you're going to talk to, Irina. Like, but I think that there's sometimes it feels like that, where you just go into that pressure mindset, and then you realize like, who is this going to help? This isn't going to help them. This is definitely not going to help you. You're going to feel super stressed out, which I was feeling. And then I just really, when I entered flow, I realized that I had better clients coming to me. I was really able to not only just have better clients, but I actually started enjoying the sales process, because I realized that I'm learning during the sales process. So I really was learning. And then once I started realizing like, this is all part of the job. It's just part of the work. So it's not about the outcome. From every single prospect, I am learning by speaking with them and having a conversation with them, asking them about their business, figuring out what their problems are. And it's almost like preparing me for the next sale. And then it's like preparing me to win that maybe really big contract that was just perfect for me. So I try to just enter that flow. I realize that with sales, it's not going to be you're going to close every deal. And I think when I had that expectation, it was just so stressful. What about you, Elizabeth? How do you do your sales? And did you have a journey yourself about how you've been through it? Because I know, you've also told me a lot of stories about your sales process.
Yeah, and I really liked what you said about person to person, because that's totally what it is, right? It's relationship building. And I think hustle culture has been such a huge part of our sales process for, I don't know, the past few decades. I worked for someone who literally aspired to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. And I mean, we all kind of know how that ended, but he literally looked up to this guy. And, and speaking of desperation, he used to tell me I don't sound desperate enough. And I'm like, who wants to sound desperate? Not me, but yeah, it was very much like, okay, like get them on the phone, push, pressure, shove. And, I'm dealing with people's money, I mean, well, so we all are, right? But I mean, I'm literally like trying to put them in something that's going to be at the minimum 2 years, at the maximum, maybe 7 years, with a monthly payment. And so I was really taught to like push and pressure and shove people into these loans that necessarily weren't even like good for them, So when I started Zena Financial, it was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to people. And so that's why I'm so big on having the discovery call and finding out, what they're trying to do, because there's some people, they want to take out a certain type of loan, but really there's something better that's going to be better for them just all around, lower payment or, better, tax benefits. There's people don't know what they don't know. So I really want to like dig in, get into the discovery of it all, find out what their objectives are, what they're looking for, and really try to listen. And that's, person to person, you're someone who's looking for something and I'm someone who can help you, and building that rapport. And listen, sometimes I give people exactly what they want, but for whatever reason, the time wasn't right, but like where I've been, it'd be like, well, call them back and get them to sign it. And well, I don't really want to, because you know what, if they weren't ready, if the stars weren't aligned for them, I could potentially ruin their credit. If they can't pay the loan back, it's going to go into default and they're going to have, a repossession or a default or whatever. So that really, that whole hustle culture thing really got old for me really quick, because, like I mentioned before, I like to live by the golden rule, and I want repeat business. So sometimes that's, the force versus the flow. Like, yeah, I could force people. I could definitely force a lot of people. And there's some people that maybe should be pushed a little bit, because you kind of see what they're doing and you're like, you're only really shooting yourself in the foot. Well, from the information I have anyways, but, letting it flow, I would say at this point, I can call within, let me not give myself too much credit, but let me just say maybe a 70% ratio, who is going to be back. They might be like, you know what, and completely ghost me and say, I don't, or they just tell me, listen, I'm not doing this right now. I can find a better deal, whatever. And I know in the back of my mind, you're really not, because I'm aware of what the market is doing right now in my industry. But I would say 70% of the time, I'm like, they'll be back, and they are. And I appreciate that. I would rather it be like that. I'd rather it be like, we're in this together. Like, you need help, I'm here to help. I want to give you what you need and what you want, to the best of my ability. And we can both ride off into the sunset. And guess what? Next time you need something else, you're going to call me. So that's really, the force versus flow, the person to person. Like, I feel like that's where sales needs to go. I mean, and I feel like it is.
It is.
Exactly. But I feel like I'm seeing it like on LinkedIn and other social media. People are really kind of like over this hustle culture. So maybe that's just my observation.
I mean, I think we're just all burnt out. It's really because I literally, when I was in that hustle culture mentality, when I was starting my business, I mean, I pushed. Like every day, you know, zero like thoughts about what's gonna happen tomorrow. It was like today I have to meet. You know, I kind of like, it's interesting that you said that you came from a background that like set quotas for you, because I didn't have that before. I set quotas for myself. They were unrealistic. They were just like, I was just not being nice to myself. And so how can you really help other people when you're not even helping yourself? And so that's when I realized, like, okay, you know, if I'm burnt out, then who am I going to be able to help? I'm not going to be able to help my clients. I'm not going to be able to help my prospects. And I'm not going to be able to help my employees. I'm not going to be able to help anybody. So it's like at the end of the day, like, you know, this comes back to some of our previous episodes that we did about like self-care and just like some of those things and like mindset. And the reason we really went into that before we jumped into anything like really businessy was because we really wanted to make sure that people understood where we were coming from. You know, we really care now, I think more than ever. I mean, I've known Elizabeth for quite some time now. We've been hanging out
years now.
And the more, it's like we're kind of on the same wavelength. Like we're always talking about how we can improve. And it's not necessarily just business, right? It's like when you're improving one thing, these other things in your life have to improve too. So for example, if you want to become more decisive in your business, you're going to have to become more decisive in your life. If you're going to want to be better at sales, you better get really good at doing sales with other things that you want too. So I've gotten, like, since I've gotten better at sales, I've gotten better at just getting more of what I want in my life from the people that are already in my life by just being able to communicate better in general. So, you know, that's how I look at sales. It's just communication, like people talking to me about things, you know, me having to just sit there and digest the information that they're telling me that I just sometimes don't even think is correct, me not jumping in and trying to fix them, but just nodding my head and being like, okay, well, you know, you're here and like, this is not where you want to be. You kind of want to be here, you know, and for us to be able to make that transition, like, what do you think is stopping you? Yeah. I mean, that's one of my tactics that I use in the sales process now is I let the prospects tell me why they need me, right? Instead of me being like, this is great. You know, our marketing is the best. I'm just like, okay, like you tell me, like, what are you currently doing? Oh, right now you're bouncing around. You don't have your marketing in place. You don't have any organization. You don't have any automation. You're just bouncing around trying to just do it all from your marketing to your sales to your delivery. You're not doing anything consistently. Like, okay. You know, like they tell me these things and then I go, okay, you know, here's what I can offer. So it's interesting. I think that this is definitely a topic we'll probably be exploring more, Elizabeth, because, you know, we're just about up on our time and there's still so much to talk about when it comes to sales. But I think this is a great, like, break the ice. Sales is not like super scary. Sales is just a part of business, a part of what we do. Easier when you look at it as person to person.
Totally. Absolutely. Well, yeah, no, I think it was a great discussion today. I'm glad we finally are covering it. So anyways, in that case, everybody, well, I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We appreciate you joining us once again. And we really do hope that you come join us for the next one. And again, if you guys have any questions or want to leave any comments below, anything you want us to cover, please do let us know. We'd love to talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.